Welcome back to the Stadium Journey podcast. We're proud to be part of the HIAC Talk Radio Network. We are the internet leader in stadium reviews for the traveling sports fan. Check out all 2,600 of our stadium, ballpark, and arena reviews on our website, stadiumjourney.com. And check us out. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Stadium Journey. And the Stadium Journey podcast and all of HIAC Talk Radio's content can be found at thebradyhicks.com or look us up on VOC Nation on iTunes Radio. Follow the HIAC Talk Radio Network on Twitter at HIAC Talk Radio. And if you'd rather watch your sports talk, all the HIAC Talk Radio podcasts are now available on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. And since introducing lineups is what I do for fun now, here's our starting lineup. We've got Dave Cotney. You can follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez can be followed at Ballpark Hunter. Follow our producer, Dan Calachico, at DanLaw83. And I am Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And joining us today is Tim Capper from Alouettes Flight Deck and AFL Tonight. Tim, welcome back, and thanks for joining us once again.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
You want to take a second to shout out your social media presence?
Yeah, I am at on Twitter at Repact. That's REPPACT.
Now, originally, we were planning to talk all about Montreal sports menus. And you know what? We're still going to get to it. If not tonight, then another time, as long as Tim wants to come back. But seeing how we have an Arena Football League expert here, I think it behooves us to talk about the big news that broke today. Tim, what happened?
Well, a very surprising, I guess, news story that came not from the league, but through the Albany Times-Union. It was announced that all local teams would be suspending operations, not the league itself, but just the teams itself. And they didn't mention why, but it had to do with the this huge $2.45 million lawsuit that's been filed against the Arena Football League for something that happened in 2009 through 2012. So could this be the final nail in the coffin for the AFL? It looks it, but we've seen weirder things happen with the AFL over the 33 years. So,
wow, 33 years! I wouldn't have guessed. Now this lawsuit you're talking about, it's not a debt that was accrued by the current ownership group, right? It was a previous regime.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was the AF1 at the time, which was run by Jerry Kurz, and it's just on for non-payment of insurance for the insurance that they signed. And it's interesting. You can head over to any social media. It's especially over at the other site that I work for ArenaFan, at ArenaFan on Twitter. We have a retweet of a guy who's going through the entire lawsuit itself, including a link to all the documents.
That's interesting. So, like you said, as I understand it, it's the league hasn't announced that they're shutting down, that they're closing up operations. But what they've done is the teams, they're not going to be what are there, 6 teams in the league now? They're not going to be operating in their locations. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's from what I understand. Yep.
So what does this mean for the league? Do you think? I mean, is there a way to save this?
Everything right now is based off of what Commissioner Bowe has stated in the story over at the for the Times-Union. It really is too early to tell. But I've seen so many things occur with this league, from the CBA and the league being dead and the league folding, this, that, and the other. If money is a huge issue right now, and especially with it being 2.5 million, I don't know what they'll be able to come up with, other than what they're looking to do is possibly doing a barnstorming season similar to what the professional lacrosse league is doing or did.
Yeah, the Premier Lacrosse League.
Yeah, and or what the Big Three has done, and basically go from city to city. and have the Soul versus the Empire, not the Philadelphia Soul versus the Albany Empire. So it'd be barnstorming cities for every single game. Sort of, actually, somebody gave me this reference actually too. This idea. It's sort of similar to what the China Arena Football League did in their first season, where they did from city to city to city in sort of a barnstorming season for their first season.
There was a Chinese Arena Football League?
There was. So well, for 1 year so far, and it's different. It's bouncing up and down from when they're supposed to start up again in 2020, but it's slightly different, obviously, than what the current AFL is. It's not the same ownership, has no ties to the current Arena Football League at all.
So one part I'm not getting here, and the articles that I've read have said straight away that they're looking at this kind of barnstorming model, this PLL kind of model. And the part that I'm not getting is, how does that change anything after this lawsuit? Like, are we just talking about getting rid of front offices? Is that really what this is all about?
I really wish I knew law a little bit better than I do, but it's considering that, that the league's main funder is Ted Leonsis, the commissioner is Randall Bowe, who used to be his one of his lawyers. They may be looking at different options, because I know within the lawsuit they stated that they are looking for some sort of arbitration. That's one of the options given to the AFL. And people need to remember that this thing was only filed 13 days ago, so it would be on the 16th of October that this thing was filed. They have, it looks up to be mid-December to decide what they're going to do, if anything. Out of all the times that I thought that this league was going to rebound, I'm heartbroken. I really don't know. I really don't know what to say.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I don't think the barnstorming model is going to work for lacrosse. I definitely don't think it's going to work for arena football. I mean, to me, it's like the circus, right? Circus comes to town once a year. You go and see the elephants, and you go and see the clowns all pile out of the car. And then after a while, it gets kind of old. But you have no real attachment to the circus.
Right.
Right? The big three, to me, is like a circus, right? You're going to see these old guys who, it's... Tim, you might remember this. We used to have old-timer hockey. Do you remember old-timer hockey?
I do.
Yeah. It used to be on, like, CHCH on, like, Sunday afternoons when nothing else was on. And you're basically watching a bad product for name recognition. And to me, that's what, like, the big three is. But arena football does not have the name recognition. I don't think the lacrosse league does either. So, barnstorming 1 year, maybe, if they do that. But I don't see that being successful.
And it's different than what it was in 1989 when they did their barnstorming season, because you still technically had teams named the Pittsburgh Gladiators, or you actually had a city name that was associated with these teams. 89 is completely different than what it is in 2019. There's just so much more now that you can go and watch. So it's true. One of the downfalls, I think, of the AFL is that they never had a national presence when it came to their stars, even when they were on NBC.
Well, so many of the stars are you're a CFL guy. There's always that worry, right? Oh, geez, we've got this star quarterback. Is he gonna bail and go south?
Mm-hmm.
Arena football the same way. It's minor leaguish without being minor leaguish. There's no direct line. You don't know that Malachi Jones is one day going to go and play for the Jets or whoever, right? But you know that he's probably good enough to go and play elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then what? So I don't know. This is a tough one. I was really surprised when I saw it this morning. And funny, the article that was in the Albany newspaper referred to about 7 other dead Albany teams. So it looks like they're really taking it on the chin.
They were a city that deserved their team. They supported it very well. It's heartbreaking. They basically win a new another championship after literally almost 20 years to the day, and now this. But as I said, we're literally it's now 0 hour basically, and who knows what's going to happen over the next week, months. I think they said a couple of weeks they have to make their decision, according to the story.
Right. Yeah. This all just broke, so we're kind of doing this on the fly. We don't know what the timetable is. We don't know what's going to happen next. We're just kind of speculating here.
Yeah, as I said, but I still think that the lawsuit itself and all the documents is very eye opening. It really is.
So I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen in the end. So basically, here's what I see. They're all going to go and into this room or whatever, do their little arbitration or whatever, and the Arena Football League is going to be done. Ted Leonsis and Jaws, Ron Jaworski, they're gonna pack it in. And then this hooded figure is going to come out from behind the insurance company. He's going to pull off his hood, and it's going to be Vince McMahon. He's going to say, "It was me all along." And that is going to be the birth of the XFL.
The XAFL?
Yeah, the XFAFL.
Can't you see that happening? Come on.
Didn't Vince try that? He bought remember, wasn't there an indoor league called the XFL and then he bought the name?
I don't know.
If I remember correctly,
sure.
that's how he got the name. I mean, this is also Vince, who I think was one time wanted to buy the CFL.
Yeah, Dan says he bought the name.
Okay.
From somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, imagine this. Dan's got his mic turned off right now. We're talking about Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I guarantee he's biting his tongue. Just I can't go on.
Hey! No, I'm kidding. Go.
I was gonna say that before. I was like, no, I gotta save that one for the show. So, let's say 5 years from now, let's say that's it, and 5 years from now, we have the AFL is not come back. What's the league going to be remembered for? What's it going to be remembered like? What do you think?
I hope it's just the type of game, because it was the precursor to any indoor football. It was the start of indoor football, as we noted, even though there are different games out there, different leagues at different levels. I think it's really it. Besides the big names that may have come in, and no matter how they came in or how they may have left, every AFL fan will remember their faves and their favorite teams, their favorite players. But I'm hoping that it's just that the AFL is remembered not for the garbage that fans went through for 30 years, but the memories that were made. I know it seems sort of cheesy to say that, but you're also talking to an AFL lifer here, so it's
I think you get a pass on cheesiness if you've been around arena football for 30 years. So, cheese away.
Yeah. But no, I just hope that it's remembered that it was what actually started indoor football. It was a unique game, and the changes that it made, even within the first couple of years. It's sports in itself, being able to survive. I hope we're able to say that, I'm able to say that I'm going to Arena Bowl 38 in 5 years. But I just don't really see that happening. I really don't.
Well, here's my question about arena football, and sorry for the outage. I got knocked off for a little while, but I remember watching ESPN and announcing, "Oh yeah, there's going to be Arena Football League, and it's going to have these different rules." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds amazing!" And I'd watch watch it on tape delay. And I remember going down to Tampa Bay in 1991, 22,000 people at the Suncoast Dome. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I just remember there was that certain atmosphere. They wore the Zubaz. They had the laser light shows. Orlando had a predator, looked like he could kill you. You wouldn't want to meet him in the streets. Come down from the top of the roof. My question is: has arena football passed its prime? Is there still cities out there that can embrace this and get those crowds again? Major markets.
It would have to be major markets. I mean, you've seen which way that the league has gone in recent years. It's alienated so many cities because of the ownership and because of the executives and how the league was run. Would this league have been different if Jim Foster had stayed on the entire time? I'm sure it would have been. Remember, this is a guy that maxed out. I think it was 3 credit cards just to get the first season up and running. So. There are a lot of markets that they could have gone to, but they can't. I mean, I'm using the lower tier markets, indoor markets. I think some of them you really can't go to. The NAL has tried to do that with some of these things. They went back to Worcester, Mass. And I was like, I never thought Worcester, Mass would ever get a team again. But it's. I think
Worcester's taking everybody's teams.
Yeah, it's right. There are markets that they haven't tried, but I still think you need some big markets in order to have they remember, this is the one indoor league that was able to get ESPN on multiple occasions. Whether there was a partnership or whatnot. They were also on NBC. But then again, the landscape has changed when it comes to streaming and stuff like that. But still, to be on ESPN2 for the Arena Bowl championship this year was a coup. So I don't think any of these lower tier cities and stuff like that, leagues and stuff like that, I don't think they were going in the right direction. They were going with the business model with if you're betting friendly, then you're within their radar.
And what's your opinion on some of these lower tier leagues? Do people that you meet that are not familiar with arena football get them mixed up?
All the time.
All the time. I have to explain that. No, that's arena football. It's a different set of rules, different league. Trenton, I have some friends in Trenton that thought that was arena football that they saw last year.
Well, I think that's the problem too, is because they call it arena football. It's not arena football. I've always said. I said to one of the guys who ran the Jacksonville Sharks, they're in the National Arena League. I said you're not arena football unless you have the nets.
Yeah.
Other than that, to me, you're indoor football.
Now, was that patent the name arena football, or was that just the nets that are patent?
That was the game system. Okay. That was part of the patent itself, and like most patents, they do expire after a certain amount of time, and it happened to expire. Anybody technically could have used the nets, but didn't. They just used their own type of nets. Like the nets hanging in the end zones that look like regular nets.
Yeah, they look sort of.
Regular uprights.
Yeah, they don't. When I see them hanging up, they look sort of dingy. It's like, where are those arena football nets? Like that to me just makes the leagues pop out as soon as you walk into an arena.
As I said, it was interesting.
Yeah.
It's as I said, it was the game system itself. I've had to explain it many a time, and I think a lot of people will say, well, you're biased. Yeah, I'm biased. Of course, I'm biased. Some indoor football is good. Some indoor football is absolutely horrible. I've been to the best. I've been to the worst, in my opinion. I was at an AAL. Was that an AAL? I think I was at an AAL game a few years back when they had a team in Burlington, Vermont. That was just.
Where did they play in Burlington, Vermont?
Where the Catamounts play at their hockey arena.
Really?
Yeah.
In that barn?
I can't imagine that.
It was great, especially with the orange turf. It was something to see.
Oh boy.
Sure.
Yeah, there. I have a picture on my social.
Why didn't you review that, Paul? That's your neck of the woods.
I never even heard of it.
That's one we're gonna have to look up, I think.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Bucks, Vermont
Are
Bucks.
they around, or that was? I think they're gone.
No,
They're kind of being reborn, so to speak, in another
Yeah.
league that is called the NEAL, the Northeast Arena League, or something like that.
Well, if you look at our website, I'm sorry to cut you off, Dave. I'll let you go. If you look at our website, we have reviews from the American Arena League, and I think there's one team in Georgia that played in a banquet hall of a hotel.
yes.
And just
my
set up stands around it, and I'm just amazed that that's what is being passed off as professional football, and that definitely was not the Arena Football League. First class operation, first class arena.
That's the
So,
thing. Yeah, I think that's what I hope most people remember.
So just for some clarification, with regards to the patent of the net, because that's really what makes arena football click. So are you saying that currently any team could, or any league or anyone, or Tim Capper comes up with a whole bunch of dough, he can just start his own arena football league and use those nets in that same system?
Yeah. I just can't call it the Arena Football League.
Well, if it's your league, why would you call it the Arena Football League? Why wouldn't you
No,
call
I
it
know,
like
but
the
you-
Tim
you know-
Capper League?
Yeah, that's going to sell really well.
National Gridiron League.
Yeah, but anybody could. But nobody has. I think it's the cost.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I would assume that the setup is pricier than it would be for one of the other leagues.
Yeah, here it is. Football game system and method of play, patent number 4,911,443. That's the patent, U.S. patent for the arena football game.
Okay.
And no, I didn't know that off the top of my head.
So, at some point in the Arena Football League history, it hit its peak, and then it started to really head downhill.
I would say the NBC days, yeah.
A couple of retreads, or not retreads. That's not a good word. A couple of ascensions, but essentially, downhill. What point do you think was the real beginning of the downward trend?
The league suspending play for 2009. Even though it did come back a year later, they were paying some players up to six figures. It wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
You're basically burning through cash, and you're paying a guy, you're paying some of the big name quarterbacks who are getting paid six figures.
Interesting.
That's very lucrative. I never realized it got that high in the Arena Football League.
Yes.
I would have said the 2003 season
So they had
was
to
the
move.
beginning of the wrong direction, because it was that season where they moved, and they suddenly were competing against things they had never competed against before. They're competing against hockey, and they're competing against basketball, and they're competing against lacrosse. And they're not just competing for eyeballs, they're competing for times. And I think in Toronto, that was not that Toronto was going to be a overly successful enterprise, but I think that was really the end, where it was like, well, wait a second, we're going to have to share the Air Canada Centre with the Leafs and the Raptors and the Rock. We're going to end up playing at 4 a.m. on, a Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, they play most of the Raptors. God, I'm doing it now. Most of the Phantom games were played on either Friday or Saturday nights, and then in year two they were on Thursdays. That was before NBC. That was before the NBC days.
Yeah.
But I mean, the team, because it was somewhat associated with Rogers, they had a made a local TV contract on Sportsnet.
Yep.
So that was a plus.
Yep.
But yeah, at that time, still, some of the salaries were they were slightly growing. I mean, and maybe we can say it was and I have nothing against unions because I'm in a union, but maybe the different collective bargaining agreement sessions and what they were trying to do in getting a new agreement, maybe that was a part of the downfall too. Because I mean, I understand safety. I'm all for it. I understand these guys have to get paid. But maybe, I don't know. It's funny. I've seen that major things in the AFL have always started with a lawsuit. I'm dead serious. And
Brings down a lot of people.
One of the ones that really started it in the AFL was the lawsuit by James Guidry. He was a player who played for the Portland Forest Dragons, and he broke his neck. He sued the league. So, I mean, there are other players who have done the same thing, but this was very high profile. And he's been a staple for the players' union ever since. So
let's take Dave's question and flip it on its head. So what were, if we're not going to see the AFL anymore, what would be its high points? What would be its legacy to the game of football? Well, we wouldn't have Kurt Warner if it wasn't for the AFL.
No,
right?
we wouldn't have Kurt Warner. We wouldn't have Malachi Jones currently. I mean, depending on where he is, because he's a superstar. There are many guys there. It's sort of like one of those 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon type of thing, where it's a domino effect. A lot of some of these players that graduated, so to speak, from the AFL, who are superstars or are longtime starters in the CFL. Kurt Warner too. You wouldn't have had it. You wouldn't have had a Jay Gruden.
Yeah, Jay Gruden. I was thinking Jay Gruden was a legendary arena football figure for the longest time.
Yeah, and there are still some coaches now. I mean, Pat O'Hara. He's the quarterbacks coach, if I remember correctly, currently for the Tennessee Titans. So there are a lot of.
Wasn't
Sean Payton in New Orleans as head coach? He started in the Arena League.
Wasn't Matt Nagy in the Arena League?
Matt Nagy, you are correct, sir. Yeah. So yeah, you don't have the Arena Football League. You wouldn't have, I think, a lot of these well-known coaches and players in other leagues. You wouldn't have these other stars. But their legacy, it's always been to have fun. I'll always remember the first time I walked into the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, New York for my very first game. Something because I'd just seen it on TV before. It's all been about not only the game, but the spectacle.
What do you think about the John Elway influence on the Arena League?
Kind of killed the game.
Because he made some pretty significant changes, or at least he was the driving force, which
they wanted to become NFL light.
Yeah,
and John Elway is not looked upon favorably by a lot of Arena League fans.
So for those that don't know, can you help us out with the changes that John Elway was responsible for? Or?
Yeah, one of the main ones was getting rid of Iron Man football.
Yeah,
big time.
It used to go both ways. I mean, some players still do from time to time, but the rules were changed drastically with that. I mean, that's one of the big things for Elway. And again, pushing it to NFL light, which it wasn't.
Took a whole piece of strategy away because suddenly you had unlimited changes.
Well, true. Before, I mean, I still have complaints about what they've done recently to the timing rules over the last 2 years. But for significant changes, yeah, Elway is that's the change.
Wasn't that the Arena Fan season theme this year is what was it? The last minute. You guys talked about that like every day.
We did quite a bit, and then we were like, well, we can only get on our soapbox ever so often, and we can't keep driving fans away from listening to the show by talking about the same thing over and over again. So we kind of bit the bullet and just shut up. Maybe get in a few digs here or there.
So right now, it's safe to say that arena football could come back in some form.
I guess so.
Or, will we have another four? I'm just thinking about the franchises right now, like Albany, averaged about 9,000 people last year, and Atlantic City actually drew reasonably well based on their numbers.
Yeah.
Like, what's Albany going to say now? Fool me once, shame on you. You took our team to Indianapolis. Now you brought our team back. We supported it. They won a championship. I mean, could Albany come back in another league, or if the Arena Football League said, hey, we're back, we're going to stick a team in Albany?
I don't know, because you look at what happened when the AF2 AF Conquest moved in. They
didn't support
that. That's where it was. Don't fool us. This isn't really arena. This is not the Arena Football League. This is the AF2. Some of these cities could do it. I think they could come back, but I mean, there were issues in Baltimore. There were issues in DC. Columbus was a work in progress. Even I think it was on its way.
So what do you guys have for highlights, arena football highlights? I mean, for me, one of them, Tim, you helped me find it again with the lone Toronto Phantoms playoff game that they won by 1 over the New York Dragons, and you put that up on your YouTube channel, and that brought a big smile to my face, because I hadn't seen that since it happened, which was what? Oh my gosh, how long ago now?
16, 17
years ago.
17 years.
So I mean, for me, that was probably my one major league highlight. What about you guys?
For me, I would definitely say the summer of '91. I was down in Orlando. I went to 2 Predators games, and then I went to that 22,000 capacity crowd. Well, they had 27,000 the next year, but 22,000 people watching an arena football. And I was like, my God, why can't we get one in New Jersey, where I was growing up at the time? And I just fell in love with it. I was a little more of an Orlando Predators fan, but they were sold out too. It was just such a thrilling show that they put on along with the actual game there. And this was at a time when, minor league baseball was not quite where it was with their stadiums. So people were saying, I'm not going out and watching a game for 3 hours. I'm going to come watch arena football for about 2.5 hours in air condition and get entertained like I've never been entertained before. And that's exactly what Orlando did. The things they pulled off there in 1991 were just so sensational. They had and they didn't have a winning team. The team, I think, went 3-7 that year. They wind up having a very strong team for the next decade. Tampa Bay was a winner right off the bat, but I remember just being at these 2 arenas, and the crowd support and the atmosphere and the enthusiasm made me a fan just like that. Those are my memories.
Oh, are you guys waiting for my memories? My entire arena football memory would be the 2 podcasts we've done with Tim here. Because,
oh, wow.
and Tim, you may not believe this, but the last Arena Bowl was in Albany, and we seriously thought about going. The only thing that stopped us is Albany's a 3-hour drive, and the game was on a Sunday night. So if that would have been on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon, we would have gone.
I can vouch for him, because I heard about this conversation before it happened, so it was a discussion point.
Yeah.
How about you, Tim? I mean, you've seen countless games.
Yeah.
Is there anything that stands out to you as, man, that was just the best thing ever?
Well, I think first and foremost when the Phantoms moved when they came to Toronto, it was nice to have an actual team in Canada. So I did what I normally do. I became a season ticket holder, even though I lived in Montreal.
That's hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
How far drive is that?
Well, I rarely drove it. I usually took the train. So it's about a 5.5, 6 hour train ride.
That is a serious commitment right there.
And the train is no 2 ducats either.
Oh, he is okay. He is okay. Being at my first Arena Bowl in Albany as a fan back in '99, that you got the confetti game. That I don't saw that on television, but seeing the confetti game. If nobody knows what I'm talking about, look up confetti game Arena Football League. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Colorado, right?
Yep, Colorado,
Yeah.
Chicago. And honestly, for more cheese, I think it's I've been 8 Arena Bowls in a row, 13 overall, the multitude of games, and I think it's just really it's hashtag we started using recently. Arena Football Family, meeting the long time. I think this year specifically, meeting the longtime fan who'd never seen a game before, meeting and doing a GoFundMe to bring Giancarlo from Milan, Italy, to see his very first game. And I'm happy to say that I was a part of that.
Hey, that's awesome cheese right there. That's cheddar right there.
That is.
Nah, he's in Montreal. Those are cheese curds.
No. That's fromage.
Yeah, well, I mean.
So I guess I'm going to try to top off this conversation with a question that probably can't be answered at this point, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Where does the AFL go from here? Can they go anywhere from here? Or are we going to be tying a bow on this whole experience in a few months?
Out of all the times where the Arena Football League has come up upon an issue, it always seemed dark. But on just right now, for a man like Ted Leonsis and his team to possibly balk for him, it's mere peanuts at $2.5 million. I don't think. You know what? I think we're done. I think it's done. I'm sad to say it. I think it's done.
And that's coming from a diehard fan.
Just a second. If we wait another minute, I think he just paid John Wall that amount of money. Oh, yep. He just gave John Wall another $2 million.
Here I am thinking somebody's got to put a press release out, Dave.
No. Remember, it's gonna any press release is gonna show up in any of the local newspapers first. The league's not gonna do it, at least not so far.
Yeah, that was kind of an unusual way to break a story, huh?
But I think like I said before, I think the dead date, the actual drop dead date, according from the dates that I saw within the lawsuit, I think it will be December 18th.
So until then, Tim, you're going to be still running the AFL Tonight. Is that correct?
It's funny. We are actually on off-season hiatus, but because of the current situation, we're going to have what we're hoping won't be our last show this Thursday. So what a night for a Halloween show.
Where can our listeners find that if they're interested in listening in?
I think the best way to do it is we usually if you head over to Google Play Music, over to Apple Podcasts, also it's on Spotify. Just do a search for Arena Fan. It's not under the name of AFL Tonight, but do a search for Arena Fan. And you can listen to it there.
So if this is the end of Arena Football, would you switch allegiance to another indoor football team? Can you?
No. With no hesitation. No.
No hesitation. That's it. Just like the Broken Dodgers were done, my grandfather said no.
Yeah. If the AFL is done, I may look at another league, but I won't be following it really. I mean, because I have people who I know in the IFL. But no, I'll be done. As
I'm with you, Tim.
as much as it would suck, I'd be done.
I'm with you. I'm not searching out any I to the A to the whatever intense football league or whatever.
The alphabet leagues. I could still call them that, whether the AFL exists or not.
Well, I mean, Indianapolis is going to be playing at the Coliseum. I don't know how they're going to fill people there because they're doing absolutely zero marketing, but I'll check them out. But you're right. I understand. It just won't be the same.
Yeah.
But, well, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hopefully another miracle happens because you're right. Like you said, this isn't the first time the league has been close to extinction.
Exactly.
Well, we'll see if it's got 9 lives, huh? So, Tim, thanks so much for being so flexible. I know when we set this date up, we weren't going to talk arena football. We were going to talk about Montreal, your hometown. So if we can reschedule and do that another time, we'd love to have you back on again. And thanks again.
Oh yeah, by all means. I'm sure by then too there'll be a lot more news hopefully out of Montreal that we'll be able to talk about, and hopefully a more positive note also, at least on my end.
Yeah. Where can our listeners get a hold of you online?
You can head over to Twitter at REPPACT. You can also follow me at Arena Fan. You can go to Arena Fan at Arena Fan. And also, if you want to happen to listen to the Alouettes podcast that I happen to do, the Alouettes Flight Deck, that's at Alouettes FL Deck.
Awesome, Tim. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
My pleasure, guys.
All right. So from here, I guess what we'll do is we'll talk about where we've been the last couple weeks since we got together. I'm going to go first because mine is quick. I didn't do any special trips. I did, however, spend the last 2 weeks entirely at a hockey rink. The Boston Pride had 4 games over the past 2 weekends. I'm happy to say that they are 7-0 on the young season in the NWHL. So no new stadium stuff for me to do. So, Mark, how about you? Where have you been the last couple of weeks?
Went to USL Championship playoff. The Indy 11 were unable to play at Lucas Oil Stadium due to, I think, a high school event. So they went back to their old stopping grounds at the campus of IUPUI, Carroll Stadium. And we had Tropical Storm Olga came on and sort of dampened the crowd. Not a lot of people were out there, but the supporters group, the Brickyard Battalion, was there in full force. And one thing that you don't have at Lucas Oil is after a goal, they spit out a bunch of fire. I'm sorry, not fire. That'd be awesome. Spit out a bunch of smoke, red, blue, and white. And they did that 3 times, the opening of the game, the first goal, and then the end of the game. And to me, that just screams what an Indy 11 soccer game is all about. A very feverish supporter group that is probably among the best in that league. And there you are with the smoke all over you, taking pictures. You know, you can go online and look at the pictures on Stadium Journey. People waving flags, chanting, screaming. It's just such a great environment. And it gets drowned out at Lucas Oil Stadium because you go from an 8,000-seat venue to a 62,000-seat venue. So you just don't have the same atmosphere that you have at Carroll. Everything else is probably better. Food, bathrooms, seats, sightlines. But the smoke, the loudness, and the atmosphere is 100% better at Carroll Stadium.
Yeah, there's something to be said for playing in the right size stadium. We've all said it 100 times over. And that's kind of the secret for these smaller teams is find the right venue, find the right size that maximizes the atmosphere.
And, you know, you got this giant track surrounding the field, which irritates me. You know, I just wish that the city or the owners can come to some sort of agreement to build a new stadium. I know they want a 20,000-seat venue with all the bells and whistles. I think that's a little bit too big for this club, especially if you're in the second division. Just build a 10,000-seater, an 8,000-seater, and add on. You know, just go step by step. Because everybody thought they're going to get 20,000 at Lucas Oil. They haven't. They did it a couple times. Once when Cincinnati was in town and opening night this past year. Other than that, it's been about 10,000 or less at those games. So build something around 8 to 10,000, build upon it, have it outdoors, let cue the smoke, and you'll have an awesome experience.
You hear that, New England Patriots? I mean, New England Revolution.
Could you imagine the Revolution played in a venue like that? I mean, they'd probably get a whole new reputation.
Do the Revs have any sort of thought that they could that they could be like an Atlanta or that they could be like a Seattle?
They're an inaugural member of the MLS. So what's that mean? 25 years now?
96.
So it would have happened already.
Yeah.
I would think.
What's going on?
I mean, they draw. They get 20 grand. So why play in a 60,000 seat stadium?
Okay,
Build a 20,000 seater. But that's been the issue all along, and we've talked about that a million times.
Could they get 30 if they took some of that empty parking lot land and built like a soccer stadium?
I bet. I mean, 30 might be a little too ambitious, but yeah, 25,000, 30,000 seat stadium would be perfect for them.
So then you run into the problem where Robert Kraft would say, well, wait a second. Why would I bother building a new stadium right next door if I'm going to get the same?
Right.
If I'm going to get the same in Gillette.
And they're probably making enough money where it's not a big issue and it's good enough. So why mess with it, right?
It can't be that expensive to convert for soccer from football.
Convert? There's no conversion needed. You just throw a few tarps over a couple of the sections and you're good to go.
Well, you gotta power wash the turf or whatever you got to do to redo the lines.
Yeah.
I mean, do they play with the end zones when football season comes, or do they erase those?
You can still see them, but they're faint.
Okay.
Like they're probably power wash them, like Dave said.
Okay.
Having worked at Gillette Stadium for several years, I mean, there was, at least from working in operations, there was no difference for us. So any changeover was minimal. So I'm sorry to interrupt your trips, Mark. Anywhere else?
No, that's fine. The only other place I went to was Victory Field, which is the home of the Indianapolis Indians AAA baseball club. They're going through some major renovations at the moment. In fact, the whole infield dirt has been pulled up. I have to show a picture of that online. It's pretty odd to see it that way. But they held a benefit ale festival there this past weekend where you paid $40 and you got your share of beer and bourbon, and they had some finger foods, and you got to have a silent auction. So you got to, if you wanted to grab something there, you had a bid on it. It didn't rain. This is before the soccer game, so it was raining heavily. But auction, and it was just, there's the ballpark, and there's the ballpark signage, and there's some information about the Indians here and there. But all these kiosks were set up with local craft beer and local distilleries from Kentucky and parts of Indiana. And before you knew it, I was feeling pretty good.
There's the ballpark, and there's the ballpark looking a little blurry, and there's the ballpark looking a little blurrier.
And I mean, it's funny.
The ground.
Yeah, it's funny. You go, it's like, oh, where's parking? Oh, just park outside. It was free parking. That would be $10 if it was an Indians game. So
just park outside.
Well, they have a parking lot, which is
damn it, I always put my car inside.
Unless you're season tickets. So that's the first time I actually parked at Victory Field in their actual parking lot to see an event there. Like I said, they took care of you. You didn't have to wait in line. If they ran out of food, it was they had it back up. I mean, they took care of you there. And I bumped into a few friends who I had interviewed for some stories in the past there that work at a distillery and a brewery. And they said, oh, yeah, I remember talking to you about Stadium Journey. So, yeah, it was a good time. Very good time.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Char and Kane are lined up, ready to go. Dave, how about you? Any stadium journeys the past couple of weeks?
Well, last episode I came on and I was super excited because Laurier had beaten Waterloo in the Battle of Waterloo in this unbelievable ending game, and they had a win to get in game against Carleton to make the playoffs. and they laid the biggest egg ever. And I don't fully understand this. So the way it ended up, Waterloo and Laurier and Carleton all ended up 4-4. And so then it goes head-to-head as a tiebreaker. So Waterloo beat Carleton, Carleton beat Laurier, Laurier beat Waterloo. So you can't break the tie that way. So then it has something to do with point differential, which I don't fully understand. So basically, if Laurier would have lost to Carleton by more points than they did, they would have made the playoffs. I don't really get that.
If they lost by, wait a minute, if they lost by more?
If they would have lost by like 18, they would have made the playoffs. But they didn't. Unless I got that wrong. But I heard a number of people say that, so I don't know. So, yeah, that was pretty disappointing. But I went to catch some OUA hockey, then made the way to Toronto, to York University, to Canlan Ice Sports York, which is the home of the York Lions. And that is it's a complex, actually, on the campus of York University. So there's like 6 ice pads on there. So on a Friday night when I was there, it was bloody busy because there were little kid teams all over the place. Much better concessions than anywhere else because they've got 6 ice pads to cater to. They actually had a full-fledged Wild Wing restaurant up top that you could look out over many of the ice pads. So that was all right. One thing that I thought was kind of neat about York, and I sort of knew this, but I didn't. There's a retired number at York, and the retired numbers in OUA hockey are few and far between. But this one is for Mark Cross, who played for York and was a captain 4 years. Went to Humboldt after his playing career at York and was an assistant coach with the Humboldt Broncos. And that was the junior team in Saskatchewan that had the horrific bus crash. And Mark Cross was one of the people who died in that crash. So York has honored him by retiring his number. York's won 5 University Cups, so like 5 national championships. Not one banner up for any of those. They've won I think it's like 7 Queen's Cups or something like that. Not one banner up for their Queen's Cups. The only banner up was for Mark Cross. So that was kind of neat, I guess. Other than that, OUA basketball season kicked off. So tipped off. I guess basketballs, they don't kick them. So OUA basketball season tipped off and caught Laurier as they played Toronto. I also caught a Laurier hockey game, which was kind of cool because they were playing the Guelph Griffins. And I didn't know this at the time, but my old high school accounting teacher, his son is the goalie for Guelph. So I got to talk to my old high school accounting teacher. So that was kind of cool. So Mr. Masters, if you're watching or listening, shout out. Good to see you. And I guess the highlight was that I took my daughter on the 25th to her very first Toronto Maple Leafs game. And it probably cost me about as much as like an overnight road trip far away. The tickets were ridiculously expensive. And we ended up in the last row in the corner. But surprisingly, the seats were still pretty good. You still had a really good view, which I guess says something to Scotiabank Arena and how good it is. I couldn't get her, though, to pose. She's 16, right? So, getting a picture of her is one thing. Getting a picture of her with her dad is like not happening. I tried to get her to get a picture with, Johnny Bauer and his bronze statue or Matt Sundin. No dice there. But I did get
Don't worry, they come back around in their early 20s, Dave.
Say that again?
I said they come back around in their early 20s.
Oh, okay. But no, we had a good time, and it was you got to hear some Hall & Oates. So when the Leafs score, they play Hall & Oates again this year, so that's a good thing. And yeah, that's probably the last Leaf game I'm going to take her to until until I get a mortgage for Leaf tickets.
So what's a ticket in the last row of Scotiabank Center go for?
My tickets were $140 Canadian.
Cheapest ticket in the building. Wow.
I can believe it.
I think there's probably some cheaper ones. They do have some obstructed standing room, which I would guess would probably be in the $80 to $90 range. And that's kind of standing behind where we were sitting. But literally, I pointed up, maybe about, I don't know, 10 meters from where we were sitting, pointed up and to the right, and I said, "Hey, Emma, that's the press box. That's where I sit normally."
For free.
It's about the same distance.
I'm hoping that I get a credential to go to the Garden for a Bruins game because they redid the press box, and it's the same setup. It's up at the top level in the halo up in the rafters, but they built kind of a level out, so you're kind of hanging out over everything now if you're in the press box. So that'll be a little scary.
That's becoming a lot more common where the press box is almost over the ice, right? You're doing a lot more looking down. Montreal has had that forever.
Philadelphia too, I believe.
Dan was talking about that at MSG last week.
Yeah. What were they? The bridge seats.
Yeah.
Saw a good YouTube video on the bridge seats at Madison Square Garden.
Ooh.
I think Siri had something to do with that. I think she was listening.
So is that the extent of your trips?
That is it.
Hey, so that means we are going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening, and I want to thank Tim Capper for joining us, and for most of all for being flexible. And thank you guys all for being flexible. We called an audible at the line here. So I saw a zone defense. The play wouldn't have worked, so we went against the man offense. So Dan is not incognito, incommunicado at the moment. Our listeners can follow him on Twitter at DanLaw83. And Mark, what do you got going on for the next couple of weeks, and where can our listeners follow you?
They can check me out at Ballpark Hunter, Instagram, or Twitter. And I am not sure where I'm going in the next few weeks. I know there's a couple bus rides to soccer playoff games in Pittsburgh and Nashville. If I feel up to it, maybe I'll just hop in my car and check out the Indy 11 in Nashville this weekend. But chances are I'm not going to know until a few days before. So I'll keep you all in tune, though.
How long is it to Nashville from Indy?
4 hours without, it's just a straight shot is 4 hours, maybe a little bit more with traffic. That's not too bad.
I forget how sometimes being up in the country.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, Milwaukee's 4 hours. St. Louis is about 4. You're 4 hours from somewhere with hockey or arena football or soccer.
There you go. So, Dave, how about you for the next couple of weeks? Anything planned? Any stadium journeys?
I do have some. I've got some reviews coming up. I've got some Brock Badgers basketball review that we need to get up on the site. And then I'm doing an Ontario Tech doubleheader. So this might be the least attractive basketball matchup ever. So we have the Ontario Tech Ridgebacks, which are a brand new team. And I'm going to see them play the Carleton Ravens. That's the team that's won 13 of the last 15 national championships. So I figure that game might be over before the opening tip. But we got a doubleheader there with some basketball and hockey writing those. But this weekend, I'm not really sure yet. It might be a trip to the University of Waterloo for the Waterloo Warriors hockey, or I might rejig things and hit London to do the London Knights review. So you can follow all of those at ProFan9 on Twitter and Instagram.
And as for myself, I'm headed to McGuirk Stadium, the home of UMass football in Amherst, Mass. Actually, the stadium is not in Amherst. It's across the town line in Hadley. We're going to catch the UMass Minutemen, play a game there. And on the way home, we're going to stop at Providence College, catch the Friars hockey team at Schneider Arena. And then next weekend, while my wife is away at our daughter's baby shower, I'm going to head to Hartford and have a couple naughty nurses, and then over to the XL Center for some UConn hockey. You could follow all my stadium journeys on Twitter and Instagram at PuckmanRI. And fans, don't forget to check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on all our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Stadium Journey and at HIAC Talk Radio. You can find the Stadium Journey podcast and all of HIAC's other content at thebradyhicks.com or on iTunes Radio at VOC Nation. And you can also watch all of our podcasts on YouTube. Just search HIAC Talk Radio. So for Tim Capper, Dan Colachico, Mark Viquez, and Dave Cotney, I am Paul Baker wishing you all close games and safe journeys.